What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I'm LotusAsakura, the one never knows best, and bring you yet another kind of different video from the thing I normally do. And this is actually quite different, but it's still fighting game related, and I think it's something that you'll really enjoy. And I don't really have to give you too much ado because you can see their faces right here on screen. I'm joined today by the one and only LordKnight and Sajam for a bit of a discussion video. I'm sure you have both and probably already discussed the tweet that was going around about the FGC is broke and how nobody wants to give money to fighting game streamers and whatnot. And you guys will feel free to reiterate anything you say, because I actually did miss the streams if you did discuss them. But yes, I'm joined here today by LordKnight and Sajam for a discussion video. LK, Sajam, would you guys like to say a couple of words, introduce yourselves? Okay, you can go first.
What's going on, everybody? Okay, here, back at it again. Another one of Lotus. First one with Sajam, actually. I don't think.
Yeah, this is my first time ever actually doing any sort of collab.
Yeah.
Actually, well, Sajam and I were together on someone else's channel. This is the first time I've ever brought him onto my own, which is funny because this is something I feel like I should have done a long time ago. But very honored and happy to have him here. Better late than never.
Yeah, and you know, for me, somebody recently was like, "Why don't you never do collab videos?" And I was like, "Well, you'd have to get one other person or multiple other people in the same place at the same time, and sometimes that's really hard."
So
and then
it's
you
a
hit
lot
me up
easier said than
literally like days after. Someone was like, "You should do some collab videos," and I was like, "All right, this is perfect. I'm just gonna go do." I was like, "Yep, sure, whatever you want to do.
Let's
Talk
run
about
it,
whatever.
let's run
Sure,
it.
sounds great."
Yeah, and I may or may not have another special guest coming to the channel very soon. Might be a bit of surprise for you guys and someone that I've never collaborated with before. So stay tuned for that.
Former President Barack Obama. I'm breaking the news.
But I digress. So I normally don't make videos discussing these types of things, even though I normally have my own thoughts and opinions. It's because I kind of like try to stay away from drama, so to speak. And it almost kind of feels to me at times where, like, if I engage in these conversations, it feels like I'm like fanning the flames or engaging that. But I think I want to talk about things like in the community a bit more often. And also I think this one's a little bit different because I'm joined here by two guests who are going to kind of help me spin this and pivot it into something a bit more positive, and also discuss kind of like why some people do succeed, some people don't succeed. But yeah, I don't even want to go through the hassle, not even the hassle. I don't want to put I mean, a lot of you guys have already seen it, and I'm sure some people mentioned in the comments, but I'm not going to put the tweet or the person's name on screen because I don't want to send any hate or anything their way. But basically, there was somebody who tweeted something along the lines of, the fighting game community is broke. The FGC is never going to grow because people don't want to support streamers. And this is a sentiment that I very much disagree with, and I'm confident in assuming that you two probably agree with that as well. Obviously, in comparison to other esports like MOBAs or FPS games, yeah, sure, our tournaments and prize pools are significantly smaller. But I'd like to think that we have a very healthy economy and environment when it comes to the growth and development of fighting game content creators, especially within the last couple of years. I would say maybe 5-10 years ago, you can make the argument that a lot of fighting game creators weren't really growing and a lot of it was stagnant. But I think with the release of several games and with a lot of people becoming more open to the idea of creating content, because I feel like there were some hard-headed individuals out there in the past who were just like, I'm a competitor, I'm not a YouTuber. I think things have definitely taken a turn for the better in that lane. I think it can only continue to go up. Any thoughts?
I'll step in first because you basically talked about me originally.
Yeah.
Where like I was a tournament player, and I was like, yeah, I am. I do play tournaments.
Right, and real quick, I'm gonna let you finish, but that's another reason why I wanted to bring both of these guys on here, because LK, originally a competitor, now creates content as well. Sajam, he's competed in the past. I remember him placing pretty highly in some KI events, and he's pretty adept at Street Fighter. And on it, frankly, every game he plays, he's actually pretty nasty. I feel like he could place pretty decently in Guilty Gear and other games as well if he really wanted to. But mostly a commentator and as well as a content creator now. And I like the idea of having the multiple perspectives. And then obviously myself is primarily a content creator who then kind of stepped into competing a little bit. But go on, okay.
Yeah. I kind of want to say, I'm speaking a pinch for Sajam. It's easy to say for like competitors because I was one, but I had the perception that also commentators don't really create content either. They just grind commentary also.
You're correct.
Yeah. So I feel like we're similar in that way, where like we both have like something that we do in fighting games, and then we also do content for like whatever reason. So in my case, it ended up being that I really wanted to be what I wanted to see from content, because one thing you think, this is the thought process of a competitive player, is like, well, there's YouTube and stuff, and like, well, Maximilian makes videos, and then like I heard about Dotto maybe like a year and a half into Dragon Ball, and I was like, oh, who's this? And I was like, oh, it's like another Max, and like that's cool and all, but like we're on the grind, bro. It's just us. Like we know the real game and blah blah blah. And just eventually at some point, I was like, I personally had the thought, because I've been playing fighting games for a long time, that I wanted to leave behind resources in case I stopped playing or something happened to me. And it actually, like, making videos on YouTube is so much more effective. I used to write for SRK, actually. Originally I wrote for SRK. I just messaged somebody. I was like, let me write for you. They're like, okay.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, I mean, the site's gone, so all that stuff is gone. But which is nice, because I have a YouTube channel now. So at least the stuff, all the stuff that I wrote about there, I've converted into like videos and stuff over the past couple of years. Most tournament players are just like, we got to focus on this. We don't really have to do other stuff, because the way we put ourselves out there is by competing in the first place, is usually the thought process. And then like you don't really care what casual players think too much, or they're just wrong because they don't play the game for real, is usually, and that's it. Not like trying to like meet them and be like, hey, why do you think this way, and then like exchange ideas. It's like, oh well, you're wrong, you don't compete, so you don't know what's up.
I think it's a very stubborn and hard-headed mindset that I've seen from a lot of competitors, and I'm gonna just keep it a stack. And I don't think it's much of a secret, and I'm sure you two know as well. If we're talking about in terms of money, it's more lucrative to be a content creator than the competitor, because unless you're the best of the best and you're regularly placing, honestly, top 3, depending on the game you're playing in, you're not going to grow and experience as many dollar signs in your bank account as you would from competing as you would from creating content. And I think that's why FGC is seeing more growth and people are getting better numbers on their streams and on their channels, because they've finally realized that. And it's like, hey, it's going to take more than me just competing in these games in order to build some sort of following, in order to be able to sustain and support myself. Yeah, and I think that's just the honest truth of that. I don't think I'm spilling any big secret here about that. I think we've all kind of caught on to that at this point.
Yeah, I mean, especially because if you're not within, like, even a lot of times top 8 payouts are there, but even then they're not great. If you're not in like the top X%, like you're not making anything. A lot of times you just go out, you get like 7th place in a major, 5th place or something. You beat really good players. It's like, all right, cool, nice. When you head home, I'm sure some people will sub to you. Like that's like your payout for doing well, and you're like, word. I mean, it's pretty brutal. But on the other side of things, I mean, LK is totally right that most commentators are also not making content for the most part. And I think competitive players, as you say, like there's certainly a feeling that like, why do I need to like make all this stuff when like they just don't understand the game the way I do, and like there's not really a reason. They can watch these dudes, they don't need me. But like if no competitor makes content, then like how do you get other people to think and understand the mindset of the competitor, right? And like the way competitors see the game and casuals is completely different. And casual audiences for fighting games are humongous, right? There's so many people.
I mean,
and so like
there's a reason why creators like Max and Dotto are as big as they are.
Exactly. And you can't get the cross pollination if there's nobody to make that happen, right? If like LK doesn't make a video that's like, what are these fighting game archetypes, as like his perspective from a strong player, then like casual players will just be like, that's punchy dude and sword guy. Like they just don't know. Like it's hard to understand what these characters actually do on the screen. And for commentators, I mean, I tell commentators that commentating on your own stream is literally free practice. Like, and in fact, it's paid practice, because people will subscribe and watch your stuff and watch your ads and everything like that. Commentary is so free. You can literally pull up any set. The replay uploaders, the vultures, they get a set, and you're just like, oh, look at this. I get to commentate this set. And if you're an underexperienced commentator, like you usually don't get the good gigs that have Daigo versus the most like Justin Wong. You don't get that match, right? It goes to someone famous. But if Daigo's playing online against somebody who's good, and like it's just a CFN replay or like Dragon Ball or whatever, I mean, you're eating. You get to commentate the best players in the world
start hitting that Birdman hair rub. Yeah,
it costs you nothing to do. And yeah, for me, I'm the same way in that I was interested in lots of different things when I was first started joining fighting games, like when I was interested in the genre, but there wasn't a lot of good resources. And so for me, in the same way, I think of the kinds of things I would have wished were there when I was a player or a commentator coming up. If those things existed, my job would be so much easier and I would have learned so much faster. So there's like so many things out there that I'm like, I wish I knew this when I was first learning. So let me just create this and put this out there so that other people don't have to go through the same pain of just like figuring stuff out on your own, which sucks and it takes way longer.
Right. I think something that I keep reiterating and you guys kind of like hinting towards as well is that I think a lot of growth comes down to mindset. How are you looking at things, and how much effort are you willing to put in? I think that's the biggest issue, because I've seen people who are like, "Yo, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Why am I not growing?" And they oftentimes want to point fingers and put the blame off on someone else. Where at the end of the day, in most cases, it's probably something that you could be doing more of, or something you could be doing better, or something that you're not even attempting to do at all. Consistency, for one, is a big thing that goes a long way. If you're trying to be a streamer, if you're trying to be a YouTuber, it's something that you should be doing on a regular basis. I'm not saying it has to be daily. I understand maybe not everybody has the time or the schedule to do that, especially if you're, maybe competing and also working a full-time or even part-time job. But just doing something on a regular basis is like the minimum, right? And then beyond that, it's, taking a look at yourself and saying, okay, looking around the community, what are other people doing that's helping them succeed? Because if you look around, there are plenty of fighting game creators who are succeeding. LK has grown so much these last couple of years. Sajam, obviously very successful commentary career. His YouTube channel has been blossoming, and he's one of the bigger streamers. You take a look at other, like, we don't even have to mention Max again. And then, like, look at Hook, from DBFZ and Persona and Guilty Gear. Like, he's blossoming, and he can do pretty much anything, and he has hundreds of viewers and is regularly getting plenty of subs. Like, there is money out there, and people will give it to you if they enjoy what you're doing. So at the end of the day, you have to take a look back at yourself and go, okay, am I not entertaining enough? Am I not putting my best foot forward? Do I have to? I'm not saying to not be yourself, because obviously when you start trying to force jokes or be some sort of comedian, it's you more often than not going to fall flat. But there are people who are succeeding. So what, like, sort of advice or tips or just notes can you take from them to incorporate into what you're doing to maybe help yourself out a little bit more? Because there's no shame in learning from others. And again, I feel like some people just have a little bit too much pride and ego, and they don't want to take from someone else and kind of learn from it. Instead, they're just, again, they'd rather point fingers.
One big thing about that that tweet, because it was like the community doesn't support their creators enough.
Which is
so
cap.
At least from
so
I mean, it's cap, but from a player perspective, if you're watching this, this is the last time I'm gonna say it too. I actually have stopped telling people this, because I get a little tight when I tell people for real and they don't do it. If you are a full-time fighting game player, if you are a professional fighting game player and you don't do content, you are full of shit and you're fucking up, and you are not going to get signed again, or you're not going to get enough money. And I'm not. This is literally the last video I'll ever say this. Actually, I'm actually done.
But people need to hear it though, because I mean, I was telling a lot of people the same thing. Like when I started getting serious about my content, but I feel like obviously I'm way more on the content creation side than like the competitive scene, but I am very invested in the scene. Like I'm there, I've gone to events, I play in online tournaments, I've actually gone and competed in Combo Breaker and Evo and stuff. So like I feel like I have like this kind of like bridge between the two. And when I started getting more invested in like meeting players like yourself, or like the Kill Sage, or like a Kizzy, like I always, and I'm not trying to take credit for anyone, because like you guys definitely, like I might have offered some advice here or there, helped out with certain things.
I'm taking credit for them, by the way. I told them. I was like,
no, for sure.
To do this, like we all need to do.
Yeah, but I've definitely been another voice to telling people like, bro, I'm telling you, you could kill this. Like you could do this. And especially because like when you see a certain player, I'm just like, you're already mad entertaining. You definitely have the skill set for it. Just do it. Like I don't know, but it's laziness on some people's part.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say the bare minimum is like if you're a professional player or commentator or whatever, and you are literally sitting there playing the game anyway or watching the game anyway, the bare minimum is boot up while you do it.
That is like, the whole reason I started streaming. If I'm gonna sit here for 6 hours playing this game, I might as well hit the share button.
Yeah, and also it's like that's not even necessarily good content, but like it is the minimum. Like you should be doing that at the very least, and that is something.
Yeah. And again, that is the minimum, right? But obviously, you want to build upon that and work up from there. Because again, unless you're Sonic Fox, Daigo, right? You can't really, and not to say that Daigo does, because Daigo does speak. I don't watch his stream super regularly.
He streams so much.
Yeah, he does. But like Sonic can start up a stream and they'll have 1,000 viewers with no microphone, right? Like unless you're that caliber of player, you're gonna have to do a little bit more than that. But that is the minimum.
Yeah, it's free. And like what I was gonna say too about the support and stuff, like we have to be realistic about the game. Some games prize pools are big enough that you can live off them if you are the best. And like fighting games are kind of like that, depending on the tour and situation and stuff. And some games are just not. Like if you're a Dota player and your team does okay at TI like once, like you make so much money, right? Like, there's a ton of money there because of the compendium. But like even like some other games where there are like large prize pools, if your team's not doing well or whatever, you might be smoked or what. Like there's some games where the prize pools are just not that big, even outside of fighting games, right?
Mhm.
And so you have to make money off of sponsorships or teams or content or like some other form of making money, because otherwise you're just hosed, and like that's the reality. And when it comes to content too and creating stuff and making money, like I don't, my first advice if you want to make money is do not do it to make money. Like first of all, create stuff
Yes.
because you like it and you enjoy it and you want to do it. And then if you make money, it's a bonus. But
The money,
secondarily to that,
the money comes naturally at that point.
yeah. Yeah. And secondarily to that, like if you were worried about the money all the time, it will affect your content and what you make. So like if you're sitting there stressing about numbers and the money you're making and like it's natural as a freelancer, I understand. Like even when I was only a commentator or whatever, but if you are stressing about the money and the support you get, you're gonna be like, you're gonna have that kind of a feeling of like, why am I not getting mine from people who are supporting you and stuff? And that's not the right way to do it. You will have the most success in terms of growth and money and all that kind of stuff when you just focus on creating the best stuff you can and don't worry about outcome of like the money. You just worry about output and creating stuff you like.
Right. It's very easy to get caught up in the idea of I'm better than this player, so why don't I have the following they have? Or I'm doing the same thing as this person, so how come I'm not making that kind of money? And some of that is entitlement, some of that is natural, and like I understand like where it comes from. But the support is definitely out there. Like I said, there's a reason why people like LK Sajam, Kizzy, The Kill Sage, and so many others have grown so much recently. And like I said, I think it can only continue to get better. And there's some bright spots on the horizon. I mean, Street Fighter 6 is coming out soon. That's going to be a huge boom for a lot of people. Project L eventually, that's going to be an even bigger boom. And I mean, I don't know why, but I have this blind faith and belief that that game can't flop. And I'm jinxing it. Let me knock on wood, but I feel like that's going to be really big for things for obvious reasons with Riot backing it and everything. There's a lot of opportunity out there. You just have to take it. And the idea that people don't support fighting game streamers is just untrue. It's completely untrue. It's just about how you make the most of whatever opportunity you have and how you put your foot forward and the type of content that you create and how much effort you're willing to put in. Because if you put in the effort, it will pay off. And I'm not saying it'll pay off right away, because for some people it takes a lot longer than others. I mean, OK has been in the scene for how many years? A decade plus easily, right? And it's only within recently that he's really seen a big boom. And, that was when he was focused on competition and not creating content, and then started seeing a much bigger increase in support and everything with the creation of content. And I think a lot of other competitors that if you were to ask them that have started making YouTube channels and streaming regularly, they would tell you the same thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I was gonna say too, I think there's a couple of interesting things too. Like one, you mentioned those future games and how important they are. The most, like, if you want to have the biggest boom possible in a future game, you need to build the foundation before it comes out too. Like that is, if you want to be the biggest streamer for Street Fighter 6, you should be building the foundation for it before the video game releases. But it's also interesting on the comparison of games and stuff too. I mean, LK can talk about this a bit, I think even better. But if you compare like similar size streams to like Smash to fighting games, I think the Smash streams always have more support in terms of like you compare like the same viewership amount of like streamer on each, which has more subs and which has more like support and stuff. Like I don't think each community is the same. So like I think an average variety streamer, for instance, of the same viewership as like a fighting game streamer, like it's more likely they have more subs than someone who does fighting games. So maybe they're not one to one, but the important thing too is like you have to figure out which platform you're monetizing on, which other places you're sending them that you can monetize to besides just your Twitch and whatever, and like what you want to do. Because I don't know about anybody else, but there's a lot of other fighting game streamers I watch who have good viewership and stuff, but their sub counts are not as high as I would expect for their size. But their Twitches are built to create stuff for their YouTube. Like, you know what I mean? And so like their YouTubes are really good, but then their Twitch subs are not as high. And they're like, why is my Twitch subs not as high? And like, I get it. But also if I'm watching a Twitch stream and someone goes like, all right, hold on, chat. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Like and subscribe. Like while I'm watching a Twitch stream, I'm gone. Like I can't, I actually can't, I don't stay. I like close it because I'm like, I feel like I'm not supposed to be there. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is like for YouTube. I gotta leave. Like, I gotta get out of here. So like, it depends. Like my stuff is built for Twitch and my editor turns it into a nice YouTube video. So like, I feel like I get more Twitch support and viewership because of that. But like when I focus stuff on making stuff for YouTube on stream, I notice that the Twitch is not as, they're not as like engaged.
Not as interactive. And
yeah. So there's like, you have to think about that kind of stuff as a creator too, right? Like that's an important angle to think about.
Yeah. One of the really hard things about this for sure is that like, cause the thing is like, support is like exponential, right? Like it just like you have a couple people, and then you'll have like a big increase, and then you have some new people, and you have a big increase, and each time that increase is like a lot. So if you don't have like the base, you're like, this is impossible. No one supports me and stuff. And on top of that, there's no process. Like there's nobody to tell you like, oh, like this is basically how you're supposed to do it. And when people, if a standard person is like, well, okay, I'm Cord Light, I want to make some videos, so I'm gonna go look at Sajam's channel. I can't make it. Not only can I not make Sajam videos, but I am likely not looking at it from the perspective of where did he start. I'm looking at like, oh, he uploaded like 5 videos today somehow about like 18 quadrillion topics that are all 20 minutes, and you're just like, how are you supposed to do this? So I understand like the challenge to get to the point that somebody who has that type of feeling that like people in this community don't support people who create things. Your challenge is getting to that point by building processes that make it easy for people to find you and make you easily accessible and give them the option to engage with you the way they want to. And you also shouldn't only use the money, because I don't know if you guys saw the stream where I talked about it, but I didn't actually talk about it. I used someone else's clip to explain what the tweet was, and then I gave my take on it. Well, I love doing that. I actually love doing that.
I agree with you, because my strat now is I don't like pulling up tweets because I don't want anybody to get flamed. So I just give you like, this is what happened. Yeah, it's like what you're doing. It's like, this is what happened. Let's turn what this like inflammatory situation is into something interesting, or like that people can engage with, you know? Because like, I don't want to just like be mean to anybody. And like I made a conscious choice at one point to do this, because one time I pulled up a tweet and someone was really upset, and I was like, there's not really a reason for that person to feel that way. You know what I mean? I'm like, I can make this a thing without that. So reverse engineering the content, like LK said, is hard, because like a good example is like Will It Kill is really popular on my channel, and the way I came up with Will It Kill, idea,
by the way,
the thing is like it's a great show, but it exists because my viewership was low on Fridays. This is how it started. I was like, my channel, it's a news channel, right? So my channel is really popular in the beginning of the week when people are looking for the news. But by the end of the week, all the news has been covered. So I was like, how do I increase viewership on the end of the week? And I was like, I should build a show for Friday. So that way my Friday viewership is just as high as my Monday viewership. And that's where the idea for Will It Kill started. It was literally like, I need viewership later in the week, because naturally I'm a news channel, so it tapers down. So like, what can I build that fixes that? So Will It Kill didn't start by like, oh, game shows are fun. Like, that's not how you like. I made it there.
It's like,
I
what can I
thought
do?
about my metrics and was like, what can I do here to make a news show interesting by the end of the week when the news is gone?
Right, and I think that reflection is something that a lot of people aren't doing when they start questioning, why am I not growing, or why does this person have this and I don't?
And like, to build on that too, like the thing I just said, right? Like I did this, and definitely other people did this. So many people tried to do Will It Kill their own way. Like so many people tried to do Will It Kill.
It was a great idea.
It's not gonna work because Sajam made Will It Kill. You have to do something else. You can't do that. If you do any other similar, like what's the mix? That's what I did. I know Diphone did one. I forgot what his was. But his was pretty funny. But no matter what, especially if you're like too metric focused, you're like, well, it didn't do as well as Will It Kill, because Will It Kill is the peak because you did it first, and then it's just like you're doing that thing. So you can't get like mad at that. Like you have to find like in my channel, for example, I think one of the big reasons like I was able to grow was because I noticed that all the fighting game content when I started was either really for casuals, like what's going on, everybody, Dado Doyle here, and today I'm playing Krillin, energy, great energy, but that's definitely for one type of person. Or hey, what's up, guys? This is my Johnny treasure hunt car cancel double backflip kickflip tutorial, and it's like 80 minutes, and it's not edited. There's no in
like, all right, let me set up my stick. Oh, I did it wrong. Let me reset.
I feel like it was even worse than that, because like Guilty Gear, I would say was even one of them, and there's definitely resources and content out there for it, but there were definitely games and times where when I was trying to get, because I've played fighting games my whole life, but obviously as a lot of people, I just started as a button mashing kid. I know what I was doing, and it wasn't even until like 2015 where like I actually discovered, oh, the fighting game community is a thing, because I got really into like watching Tekken 7 tournaments when that released in Japan and and then in arcades and stuff. And then eventually MKX came out. I'm like, oh, this stuff is sick, right? So it wasn't until Tekken 7's release in North America that I really was like, oh, I'm gonna get like nasty at fighting games. Didn't happen. But when I was trying to find resources to get good at like different games and stuff, I'm like, yo, there's a lot of these videos are just people throwing like rock music over their combos and like not explaining or helping me learn at all. And you definitely found a lane. You're like, okay, you took a look around. You're like, okay, this is what I would like to see or something I want to leave behind. And this is something that's lacking. So I'm going to create it.
I think the LK videos that are always so fascinating to me too are videos about games that I haven't played and why characters or systems or changes were so messed up or broken or busted or whatever. Because as a fighting game player, to me, I didn't play those games, but I knew the characters were messed up. And like when you watch, you can see. But like I don't know why. Like so, and I love doing stuff like that too, where I'm like, this. You think this character is nasty, but what if I told you in this other game, this character did everything this character did 10 times nastier, and it was like so much worse. And people are like in shock, and they're so invested in the ideas, right? So like that's to me, that kind of thing is also recognizing that casuals love that kind of stuff, and so do people who play the games, right? Like so do people who really are invested in the competitive scene too. And like building that bridge is really a great example of like what you have to do, because there are like, I think that somebody who's really good at this is JM. JM is really good at making videos that are like taking a competitive moment or interesting thing and changing it into a story that anybody can be interested in, whether you like play fighting games every day or you just think like Ryu looks cool when he throws a Hadouken. Like it's like those kinds of things are really important. And so many LK videos now I look at and I'm just like, all right, I'm interested. Like that's the same thing happens to me because I can be a casual or a competitor and like look at that and find that interesting. And like that again is something that you can't copy if you were not playing Persona or Old Melty Blood or anything else that like people back then either did play and they haven't done the content creation process to talk about it, or like somebody who knows the ins and outs of it and doesn't have to go research it first and then make a video and then they're wrong about tons of shit anyway. So people are like, this is not right. Like this person doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right.
So.
Which I think there's a lot of, by the way. And I think that's like one last piece of advice I want to offer is don't try to become the teacher or the person who thinks that they know everything. I've seen so many people for a variety of different games, especially in DBFZ. Obviously, that's my area of expertise, my specialty, right? People want to teach and talk so much about something and they have no clue what they're talking about. I've seen so much misinformation. Don't be that guy. If you genuinely, honestly, really think you know something, then speak on it. But if you're not sure, if you're taking guesses or you're not researched, then don't speak on it. Misinformation is not what you want to spread, and no one's gonna support your content and help you grow if you're wrong about stuff all the time. Or trying to fill a lane that's not yours. There's no shame in throwing stuff to the wall and seeing what sticks, but everyone has a lane. You find yours. Don't try to take someone else's.
Yeah, the thing that made me feel better too, I actually don't think I saw this reply in the comments at all. Also, which shouldn't be a deterrent, but it should actually be something that you keep in your head, is like the statistics related to content creation. So like I feel like when someone is like, I don't like how people in the fighting game community don't support their creators, right? When someone is saying that, I don't think they're paying attention to like what does it take to get to the spot where you receive a lot of support. Because like say like what does it take to be a partner on Twitch, right? So it's like you need like 75 concurrent viewers, and that is really 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 hard to do. Like you're like a top 1% streamer just from that, on so. And most people, like when I was around like 70 or so, 70 75 viewers, I was only holding like 20. It wasn't a lot of subs. It wasn't like 10 20 subs, not a lot of subs, right? So that's like you're already in a 1% group of people, and just the fact you're getting any support is more than 99% of people who are attempting to do
something to be grateful about.
Doing. Yeah, you should be like, man, all right, like wow, like this is,
yo, I'm making some money playing video games. This is kind of sick.
Yeah, so it's not to discourage you from trying, but you like is what Sajam said, like you shouldn't be so focused on the money. Like one thing I had that other people did not have, may not have, when I started really really seriously grinding YouTube during Dragon Ball, is I was a full-time like my job was to play Dragon Ball and other fighting games. So by extension, like in my head, I just play the fighting games I like, but my real occupation is putting out content. That is my like literal, no matter what, I must do this. That is my job. Since I'm allowed to play fighting games full time, my job is to create content, and it lets me put out what I want to put out. So if you're not in that position, which already takes a lot of luck and sacrifice, like how many people in the fighting game community can say that they are a professional fighting game player receiving income every month, like guaranteed income? It's not a lot. So if you're not in that spot, you while you're doing this, you have to keep in the back of your mind, just like you're doing this because you like it, and don't think too much about the money, because just like the percentage chances are just really small, and our community is small. So in like a game that's bigger, I feel like it, even though the percent chances is small, still you'll still see each tier of personality be bigger than like ours, just because fighting games are smaller in general.
Yeah. And like to build on that too, I remember being like a 20, 30, 40, 50, 70 breaking 100 viewer streamer and just being like, oh my god, like I was shocked at like the support I got. And like you can ask most people, if most people boot up and get like 5, 10, 15 viewers, they are like very happy. So like being someone who's like, oh, I have 100 viewers and I only have like 50 subs, these ungrateful people or whatever, like that is, so many people will be so happy to have that just to begin with. And like, you know, to put that into perspective is, I think, very important for a lot of people. And you know, to put you even more perspective as content creation, like I created content since around 2009 or 2010, right? And I made more money as a commentator in 2016, 17, 18, 19, etc. until COVID hit, as I did content creating the whole time. In fact, even my biggest years as a content creator now, I am still making less money than when I was a full-time commentator and I did content on the side. Like my peak in terms of earnings was actually still commentary. And look at how big my, like, you know, a lot of people are like, damn, Sajam's stream is very big, his content's doing very, very well, etc. And I'm not saying it's doing bad, like I'm doing perfectly fine. But for comparison, being a full-time commentator to me, because I was hired for literally everything, was more valuable. But just like a player, if all of a sudden you're not winning every single tournament, or all of a sudden if you're not getting hired to do every event, or I don't know, a pandemic happens and there is no events to be hired for
2 years.
yeah, something like content is suddenly a very important thing to have. And like not having all your money or all of your opportunity be in like one place is very important for that as a content creator too. So like it's you know, it's an important context to remember that even someone like me, right, I was better doing something else than doing content creation full time. But to me, I also don't care, because being a content creator full time is,
I don't think that'll stay that way though. I feel you as a
it probably will not.
I feel you as a content creator is only going up and up and up and up. And
it's also way better though, because like as a commentator, I was traveling 40 weeks a year.
And now you're just like, man, I could just stay in this room and boot up.
Yeah, I could just stay in this room and make a little less money doing literally whatever I want.
Right.
And like, I think some people would be like, oh, it sucks that like I was making more money before. Like, oh, it was so nice. But to me, making less money to do what I want to do is so much better. So again, like I was a smaller streamer and I always loved doing the streaming and creating content and stuff, even when the money was not good, because it's what I wanted to do. Right. And it's important sometimes to contextualize that, because I'm sure there's even fighting game like players who made more money pre-pandemic, and then now they're focusing on content and they're making a little less money than they did maybe from earnings, or like teams that maybe are not interested anymore. And I mean, that's certainly going to happen with PG exploding. A lot of the PG players are going to be in similar like weird positions with that, you know, in regards to that too. So, you know, it's like the money is always, it goes up and down. And you also see a lot of creators even right now, like COVID was peak viewership for many people, and everybody's viewership and sub counts are down across the platform. So like a lot of people are like, dude, I used to get 150 viewers, now I'm gonna get like 110. And it's like, yeah, well, that guy used to get 100K and now he gets 60K. So like,
right.
Yeah, this is just how it is. Like you got to understand it's the job.
Yeah, this comes with the territory.
If I had to say one more thing about it too, just more. I just keep trying to give people perspective stuff, because that's all I thought when I saw that discussion was, I was like, this is just a perspective issue, and if people just like step back a little bit, it would be way easier for them to understand. But at the same time, I had the same problem too for a long time, so I get it. It's why I always call myself a multiple player, even though some multiple players don't like that I do that. But it's actually to keep my ego in check, like legitimately to keep from my head getting too big. But the last thing I used for perspective, like I actually told someone this personally, was like on the viewership thing. And he was like, "Oh, everything's going down. I thought this thing was going really well and stuff." I was like, "Dude, like your viewership, your partner, which is already like 1% of all the millions of people streaming, right? You have like 100 viewers. Like you could, in theory, go to a public place, and say on the internet, hey, I'm in this public room, like a room, and 100 people would go and sit in this room and watch you play video games, assuming you didn't charge them. but
Yeah.
still, you have the ability to do that. You have the ability to do that. The only reason you don't think about it, you think it sucks, is because the red number went down.
Nah, that's real talk
Right?
though, because
Yeah,
like
yeah.
imagine being a kid, right? Because like I know I was someone like that, and you could say like your parents, but even just like your friends. Like for me, it was my dad, right? Like having my dad sitting behind me, watching me play whatever, whether it was Tekken or Mortal Kombat, or even if it was like a Naruto game, right? That was such a dope feeling just having. Or like even my homie comes over, like we might play the games with each other for a little bit, and then he might not be into Naruto like that, but I'm playing the game. He watched me. That's a sick feeling. Now imagine you just have 100, let alone if you have a couple hundred people just sitting there chilling, just watching you play your favorite game. That's sick. So like never take that for granted. That definitely is some great perspective to keep in mind for sure.
Don't you guys like randomly stream a game to one person in a Discord sometime? Like somebody's like, "Oh, I'm kind of interested in this game. I want to see it," and you stream to one person.
Yeah.
Like I'm still a one viewer streamer sometimes. Like
yeah, no, real talk.
I mean, like it's like totally fine. And as far as money goes, like I mean, yeah, it goes up and down. Like my sub count is definitely lower than it was during COVID.
Same.
And like some creators are legit like it's the end of the world when this kind of stuff happens. But you have to understand it's the ebb and flow. Like it's only natural that sometimes you'll get more support and sometimes you won't. And it's not about your quality of streams or content or whatever. Like sometimes you put out something that's a banger in your mind and it does really bad. And then sometimes you put out things that you're
some
like
BS and it pops.
yeah, you slap some stuff together and then suddenly you just get like 100 new subs on Twitch someday and you're like, dude, I literally didn't even want to go live today. I'm like tired.
But it's like that every time, right? When I'm like,
Yeah.
I shouldn't even stream tonight, bro. I'm mad, tired, and I'm hungry. Whatever.
It's
I'm
not
stream.
about it's not about you. Like I mean, you know, you have to just create the best stuff you can, and like the support will be there. And sometimes it'll be more, and sometimes it'll be less. But I think in our community we have so many big streamers and people with huge subs amounts, and like things like match arenas and crowdfunding is so big in our community too. So like obviously the support is there. It can be frustrating when it feels like it's not coming to you, but like any amount of support is pretty dope if your job is to play video games, to be honest.
Agreed. I think that was a great discussion. I thought this would end up being like a 20, maybe 25-minute video, but this is nearly 40 minutes. But I hope that you guys enjoyed it because, like, I mean, cause I feel like we could sit here and talk about something like this for like another 30, 40 minutes. But I think that people will definitely get a lot of perspective from this. And I think we definitely turned into a more positive thing and shed some light on the idea of supporting the fighting game community and creating content and everything like that. Because as we're sitting here discussing, I'm thinking of like so many other like ideas and like subjects to discuss, to, like create videos about, and just wanting to help people. But yeah, man, it was a great discussion. Hopefully those of you out there who are listening and watching listen to the whole thing and got something out of it and enjoyed the discussion. I'll leave links, by the way, to LK and Sajam's socials and channels, their Twitches and everything in the description down below, so you guys can feel free to check them out. Any closing statements or remarks, anything y'all want to leave the people with?
I guess I'll go first and just say, yeah, like, you know, it is harder than ever in a lot of ways to be a creator, I think, because there's so many new people trying it. Literally anybody can just boot up.
But it's never too late to start.
Yeah, but if you're interested in it, I think you should just do it for fun. And if it turns into something else, that's always cool. But you know, that's my sort of always been the thought process on it. And I have not been doing enough collabs. Apparently, me as a creator, I've been failing. I've not been doing enough collabs.
I've also been trying to do a lot more recently. So
I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you for coming.
2023, the year of the collab.
Hey, let's get it. I'm down. Honestly, it was something I wanted to do a lot more when I started to meet more of like the personalities in the community, and it's just something I did a few. LK is someone who I've obviously collaborated with a lot, but I wanted to do even more. But I'm not a super social guy, and like I don't make new friends too easily. Not that I can't, but I just don't do it. But you know, even me, I'm trying to break out of my shell and expand a little bit more and do more with my content and everything. So, you know what I'm saying? Even though some of you might see me as like already super successful, I'm still thinking like there's so much more that I could be doing, so many other ways I can improve. So that's one thing that I'm doing definitely for sure. Starting with recently and leading into the next year is more collaborations with people and and not even just bigger creators, but some smaller ones as well. With that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed the discussion. Like I said, links to everything will be in the description down below. Hit this video with a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't already, so you can stay tuned for all awesome content when I bring you. With all that being said, it's pretty much off today. And remember, nothing can happen until you swing the bat. Later.